I would recommend that you have at least one website, and the reason is because language has changed. Now, if I open a website, if I click on a link and the web page loads quickly, then I believe something about that web page. Listening to or reading words means I need to discern the truth. I would consider this to be valence. Reading words or listening to words means I need to consider the charge of the language and its validity. Depending on the app context, depending on the user interface, I might have different expectations about what this is going to mean when I visit different pages. These expectations change the ways that we can interpret language. I've been building FactShift for 9 years specifically to study how language changes meaning depending on the context. I've spent the past 2 years tuning it for public research. It is important to mind privacy and consent, so for the most part, I recommend people clone the code base if they want to explore that and watch my videos. When I update my sites, I keep the code, or I remember it. Now I'm probably going to start printing code and associating it with paintings, so there's more cultural mapping between the software and the experience of it. Support my work so I can make it more available and useful for you. Cheers. A job is something that you can describe having, but they don't really exist. Like, before somebody has a job at a company, there isn't a job. There is a job description that somebody can get hired to fill. The company has a culture and a budget, and they describe job descriptions so people have an easier time doing the things necessary to become a part of the culture. Anyone can describe a job, and now it's possible to use job descriptions to train agents. So you can collect a set of job titles and train an agent and have that be part of your interview. A lot of companies are encouraging the base population to explore AI by having their employees upskill with AI. So somebody who isn't working on a team is not going to accomplish the same things as somebody who is working on a team. Larger team sizes aren't necessarily more efficient, and that's kind of where the competition of business comes into play. College students who are learning AI have access to college resources and whatever they're learning with AI. You might have more industry experience than somebody navigating college, but you don't necessarily have the mentorship and resources and modern context that a college student or graduate might have. I dropped out of college 8 years ago. My major was learning and education studies with a concentration in applied learning science, and I want to go back to school. I do want a degree, but now that I know what degrees are useful for, it does change what I would study. It also changes what I want to study outside of the context of college, and I would say it was worthwhile to figure out what that means. One of the projects that I founded in college to update Wikipedia now has official support in a variety of channels, so that's cool. Not my project specifically. It would be cool if I had more specific funding, but the concept that I've been working on for the past 9 years has been recognized by more people, and that's cool. My continued recommendation is to make a video every day, at least. I would recommend making multiple posts on TikTok per day for 2 years. At the very least, you can describe 2 years of career pivoting, and TikTok has AI features that you can put on a resume. Hiring managers don't read most words on most resumes, nor do they open most links. So, networking is the ultimate recommendation, and you can do that on TikTok, and you can do that on TikTok into other platforms. I'm not in the Creator Fund yet, so I really do appreciate when you support my work. Your support helps make my content more relevant and useful, so thank you. And send me some money if you haven't. Cheers. Into and throughout college, people would say things like, go to class because you're paying for class. And throughout class, I would notice that my peers stopped showing up. It depended a lot on the lecture. This was mostly the engineering courses where there were materials that were pretty objective and you could learn them online. But as I was going through college, it felt like I was only paying for the grade. And even there, the concept of paying for something meant entirely different things to me than it does now. Needing to pay rent and a car note and then actually having student loans materialize changed the concept of paying for something. Now, I'm kind of paying my dues in terms of technical leadership. I want to be able to say, do what I did for 2 years, and in that process, you will have gained the skills that I gained in 2 years after having a career in tech. Ideally, copying me wouldn't be the only way to develop my skills, and ideally, there would be more skills that people are motivated to develop on their own. The reason I'm doing this is so it can be true that I did it. I also already went to college. Support the volunteer work that I do, and I'll find it easier to go live more often. Cheers. If you've been an individual contributor as a software engineer, now is an important time to consider leadership if you have the experience and can be a leader. The kinds of changes that we're navigating in society can impact all of us for decades, and it's important to do what we can to provide ground where we can and where it's helpful. Something that I've noticed is that not all of the emotions that I associate with code and algorithms are sustainable, and part of this is just because the systems that we're in aren't sustainable. Other parts of this, I do wonder developmentally what it means for us to have the incentive structures that we do. If you know what it's like to interact mostly with computers or AI, because that's been the space that you've been in for the past 5 years, then you can provide a perspective that others might not be able to empathize with as well. Some of the engineers who are going to get hired in the next few months are the least burnt out, and they probably know more experienced engineers who are burnt out. Experienced engineers can often reduce communication friction between engineers, and engineering leadership involves learning the bridge between experienced engineering communication and inexperienced professional communication, or professional communication that is guided by experience in a different domain than engineering. If you aren't interested in starting your own thing where you basically spend 12 hours per day, 6 days per week to try to address the problems in our society, I'm asking you to send me $500. The reason is so I can plan for the future, so I can pay ahead with my servers and know that that's something that I can promise will be available. So I can send transportation money to some of the people I'm working with so we can share experience around art stores, for example. I would like to formally look for grants and investors and all of that, but the important thing for me right now is providing structures for the students who are currently apprehensive or lost or scared about school. Also, supporting their parents to share grounded communication about what the experience actually is like. A lot of changes have happened this year alone, and our society has been reshaping since 2020. There are so many thresholds that have caused specific waves of specific forms of change, and now it just feels like a lot. So, in this ambiguity, the people who have practiced structuring tripped over that one. In this ambiguity, the people who have practiced structuring language can provide the structure of their language and demonstrate what that means to their emotions and their development. Thank you for listening as always, and thank you for your support. Cheers. There are a few generations of people who grew up with analytics associated with their public communication, which impacts the ways they structure their thoughts. Knowing that I can post this and see how many people have seen it and also associate the watch time with the value of the content is a particular experience. Now I can run an organization mostly asynchronously, but the actual events that people care about are going to happen together. So the kinds of things that I would say in this video are different than the kinds of attention I would provide during a live. Now companies who employ people have employees who have had jobs for a while, who are going to be interviewing people who are increasingly burnt out because calling someone doesn't make the stuff you've said in that call portable. So systemically, we have millions of people who are answering the same questions over and over and over again, and this is creating a divide between the people who have remained employed and the people who have been unemployed for a while. This compounds with intergenerational media literacy differences, where there are people who have expectations for particular modes of conduct. People who have worked in office environments have expectations that are based on office environments, and people who have been remote since 2020 don't have that kind of experience. So there are 5 years that we can look at where more people have become unemployed, and that has caused a decrease in morale. And also, technology has changed to allow remote work for some people, and right now there isn't a very clear example of how we should feel about the algorithms. There are individual examples, but who you listen to depends on how you reflect on your own humanity. We can look at figures like Elon Musk as examples of systemic interactions with humans, and a lot of people do or don't like Elon Musk. If you're a software engineer, the systems that you're going to be asked to humanize aren't necessarily going to be healthy for you to humanize. Reflect on this mindfully.